I think like this is a situation where because I have so much experience, the experience kind of got the better of me. Obviously, I've played Survivor, 6 different times.
Yeah.
And in that format, in that game, not only is it allowed, you're almost berated if you don't take the advantage to look at the other team and what they're doing if you're behind. So I definitely reverted to that, and I'm just going to put it out there from the outset. They definitely did say you're not allowed to look at the other person's puzzle. Joe didn't actually say it as you saw it portrayed on television, but
Hmm.
before the challenge, they have standards and practice. People run through all the rules, and there's a lot of rules. And a lot of times in those situations, you're kind of half listening to the rule and you're half like looking to see what the puzzle might be, what the maze might be, because like there's little clues that could give you an advantage when it starts. So I'm half listening. And in addition to them saying that you're not allowed to look at the other person's puzzle, they also said it's up to you whether or not you want to cover your tiles or turn them over after or put them back. So I heard that, and to me, that's kind of like indirect conflict with like you can't look at it. Like, what would be the point to turn them over or try to hide it if no one can look at it? And as it turned out, Amy was actually in the maze and she had turned around and was coming back out of the maze because she didn't turn her tiles over. This is what she told us anyway, and that she was going to turn it over. So when I did go to look at hers, I was working through it and I had it going and I was close, but I was like, man, she just got in ahead of me. I wonder if she covered hers. Let me look real quick. I'm not trying to hide that I did. Of course, I like you saw it
Yeah.
happen. And when Joe said stop, 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 immediately I knew, oh no, I wasn't supposed to do that. Um, so then they, decided what the penalty was going to be. The penalty was actually from the time that Amy had entered the maze until the time the next person was going to enter the maze would be added on. So they said it was 3 minutes. I don't know if it was exactly, it might have been more. Felt
Yeah.
like it was more standing there. But anyway, it was what it was. And so in the moment, I'm thinking to myself when I realize I have this penalty, I'm gonna have to deal with it. How can I negate it? So immediately my brain goes to, okay, if it's at the amount of time since Jamie went in until the next people go in, as soon as they say go, I'm just gonna tell Stephanie and Jordan what the answer is. I'm gonna tell them the answer is 75. So there'll literally be no time. And then I'll be right in there with them. But I made a mistake of asking the executive producer if I could do that. And, I think it was like they were already nervous because I had already broke the rule. And they're like, no, no, don't do that. Even though it would have been great. I should have never have asked them. I should have just done it. And then, you know, it could have been a lot different. But hindsight is what it is. But I was thinking that. And, it's unfortunate that it ended the way it was. But like that's what happened. And I think, like, going back to my original answer, I think it was my experience in this particular situation worked against me.
They told us, going into every excursion, they read us the rules several times. We have to hold our hand up, agree to the rules, and it's being recorded. So we know at the beginning of every excursion that, the rules are clear. Like this one, you can't, look at other people's podiums. If you felt comfortable to share like turn your tiles over, you could. I didn't think about turning my tiles over because I knew like nobody could deliberately walk over there and look. It was against the rules. Um, so it was actually tiles. You had to unscrew, like you had to screw at the top and the bottom, unscrew each tile, which took a little bit to get them correct. So I didn't worry about turning my tiles over because I knew, and it was an option if we wanted to make us feel comfortable, but I also knew that we couldn't deliberately walk over and look at other people's answers. So I thought my answer was probably safe. I just wanted to get to the maze as fast as possible.
Uh, Obviously, there are lots of differences between this show and the other shows that I've done. Um, the strategy approach to the alliances and stuff, I think, were a bit overplayed. Where like there was more of a reliance on your own ability to do well in the challenges, and of course, getting lucky in a lot of different spots. And I fully admit that, variance is a big part of this game. There was more than one occasion from a lot of different people where had they chose one case versus the other, it completely changes the game. And
Mhm.
that's the same situation in Temple when you're playing the banker, right? Like, because it can always come down to a 50-50 like flip, whether or not, you have the right case, a good deal or a bad deal. It's always going to come down to that if you understand the math of it. So the fact that you're not able to control everything, meaning that you can't control getting immunity and control the bottom and control the vote, something is always going to be out there. At first I was like super irritated by that because it's like, man, there's so much left up. But then I realized like there's a lot of genius behind it too, because you can't hold everything, and it's everything's constantly in flux. So from an audience perspective, the fact that like you'll never know what's going to happen week to week. It's not like in Survivor where you have like a strong alliance and that alliance is going to march to the end. In this show, it's always going to be up in the air. That was a lot of fun to participate in that.
The night at the picnic table, when Aaron and I kind of had a little scuffle, it didn't show Aaron at Temple what he said to me, which is why I reacted and tried to have a conversation with him that night at the picnic table. But when someone said we should probably go check on Aaron, and Jordan was the first one to get up to go check on him, I kind of was like, not that someone didn't need to check on him, because Aaron's a great person. I love him in real life. He's so great. But when she was the first one to hop up and volunteer, I kind of started, my intuition is so strong and I've always trusted it. So I'm like, I knew right then Jordan was playing both sides. But at that point, I really didn't care if she was playing both sides or not, because at the end of the day, I feel like Rob knew she was kind of floating, in the middle, which worked for her tremendously. So she never really had a target on her back. And then word got back to me that Rob was like, okay, yeah, Jordan's kind of just floating along. So I knew Rob could could cut anybody in an instant, because it's a game and it's just how you play. And I knew that Rob would much rather face me or Aaron in final two versus Jordan or Nick or Steph, because I feel like they're a lot more physically fit than we are. So I never really cared what side Jordan was on, because I felt like if it came down to it, Rob would probably choose to play me over Jordan, just because I would probably be easier to beat.
Like, this is really forcing me to show my cards. And the whole time, I'm like, what am I going to say? I'm like, should I just say I was confused? And like, I was the last one. You picked me last, Stephanie. You gave me no time. And I wanted to have as much money on that timer as possible. So I just quickly, Rob's was closest. I mean, I was like really trying to come up
You were
with
ready.
any possible story, but she never really asked. And I'm like, this is so bizarre. So she must really think that like I'm on her side, or like I didn't intentionally do that, but I was just grateful she didn't ask. So I think, yeah, at that point in the game, I was more aligned with Rob, because he was on to me. Like Dawson told me before Dawson left, this never aired, that Rob was onto my strategy, that like this, and you saw that on the show where he's telling Stephanie, like, look at Dawson and Jordan, they're hanging out in the middle. Those are the ones to be worried about. So I'm like, oh shoot. If Rob knows though, if I face the banker, that I won't take him out, he'll like let me slide in the middle for a little bit longer. So I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt.
The one situation that really triggered me was when Stephanie called my integrity into question at Temple against Nick. Nick and I weren't per se working together. In the beginning, we kind of had a little alliance or whatever, but I had nothing but respect for Nick the entire time. Like, I knew that I was a threat to him in the long game, but I was never maliciously actively targeting him. So when she says that and right in front of me, I mean, it's crazy to think after all my years of doing reality TV that I'm not going to defend myself. So in the moment, I took offense to it, and I didn't take it to the point where I wanted to, I didn't feel like I needed to turn it back on her, but at the same time, I would use it to get further in the game and to even if Nick had made a good deal with the banker, I wanted everybody else to know that this was the person that was causing that unrest in the tribe. And it was typical of her from the outset. I mean, there were many situations where in the beginning I didn't realize it, but like this was her defense mechanism. Stephanie's defense mechanism when she felt challenged or nervous or scared was to become aggressive. She did it at the very first challenge on the very first platform when we were out getting cases in the mud. And there was, she made up some situation where Branson supposedly switched her case on the stand. And it was made up. It never happened or whatever, but she drew attention to it to cause this kind of commotion. And she did it continuously throughout the season. So it never really affected me personally until, it came up with Nick. And when it did, um, I tried to find peace after the fact, but in the moment, I definitely spoke my mind. And
Thank
then
you.
afterwards, I was good. Even just so you know, like they didn't show it last night, but after I was eliminated last night, I told Stephanie, I said, "Listen, I said, you and I were adversaries in the game, but I hope outside of the game, there's no animosity going forward." And there hasn't been.
People, they say this, they say that, but I'm like, what did he really say? Like I said in the water, what did he say exactly? She gave me the whole thing, but to me, that was just unnecessary because my mind was already made up of who I was going to take out. Rob was going to be my target no matter what, because why would he not be? He's an amazing. Paying homage to him. Like he's a great game player. He's Rob. Boston Rob. So why would I not take my biggest threat out? So when I saw that she ended up lying to me ultimately about that, I just thought it was like a not stupid. It was just unnecessary. It was uncalled for because that you're kind of not trusting me. I'm your alliance member. Like I was riding with the team, to the very end. Some people have different ways about their game, but that was who I was. I'm with my team. So it didn't make sense to me watching that. And I'm like, I want to call her up. Like, what do you like?
Yeah.
Really? Like you lied about that? I was like, that just makes everything look worse, like because my mind was made. You weren't that whole argument, that whole whatever you said was not changing who I was going to take out, and which it was Rob, my biggest target, my biggest threat in the game. So I think anybody would have did it, and even if he says he wouldn't have, I think he should have. If he would have took me out, I would have not been mad because why would you not?
Right.
I'm your biggest threat in any challenge, especially a physical
Yes.
challenge.
100%. Yeah.
You can't fault that. Just for strictly gameplay, he was my biggest my biggest threat in the game. He knows what he's doing for
Yeah.
20 years. And everybody else, if I won this, I don't think there was anything stopping me.
I stand by my decision to take out Kim. And here's the thing, like what another thing like that wasn't really I mean, I think it was said. I did say it on screen, but I don't know how much attention was paid to it. But the very first episode, Stephanie was so close to being the first person eliminated, even before Branson, because I recognized in her that she was dishonest with me. When we were in the mud, the very first challenge, the objective was to get all the highest cases to build the case. And at one point, she's walking by with the case, and I forget the amount of case I had. Let's say it was 200,000. And I had the red case at the time, and I knew there was a 200K case. And I saw Dawson had the $1 million case. And once I saw Dawson had the million, I said, "What do you got in your other one?" And he said 600. So I was like, "Throw it to me." So he throws me the 600, and I'm like, I'm gonna leave the red case here and not take the chance to cause waves right away. So Stephanie goes by, and I asked her, what case do you have? And again, I don't know the specific numbers, but let's just say she said it was 150. And I was like, "Here, I got a 200. This is higher. Take this one." And she said, "No, I'm good." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Oh, I actually have 250." And I was like, "Oh, so you lied to me right from the outset. Here I am trying to help you to get a higher case, and you lied to me." So I knew that because of that dishonesty, she was somebody that I wasn't going to be able to trust. So I had targeted her early, just with speaking with Aaron, saying that, potentially she should go before Branson. Now, I knew Branson, everybody was on board to get rid of Branson because I planted the idea that because he grabbed the red case and helped Kim, that he essentially is taking a spot away from everyone else. So I'm good at that. Every season of every show, the first episode, somebody will screw up. I'll see it and I'll point it out, and I'll do it in a way where it's going to help everyone else but hurt one person. And I'm getting to your question, but so I had realized that everybody was kind of on board to get Branson, and Aaron didn't want to rock the boat to get Stephanie. So I kind of didn't push the issue, and I let him, get rid of Branson had he gone. So we come back to camp, and the second episode we do the arrows, and I win the arrows. Kim goes into the bottom. She beats the banker. She takes out Jamil. From that point until the point when I had to play, Kim was a thorn in my side, meaning that she was actively campaigning against me at every opportunity she could, and vocally to every person, telling them how bad I am, how I need to be public enemy number one, talking about my past history. He doesn't like women. He's done this. He's done that. Trying at every opportunity. And like, I even approached her. I was like, look, I know what you're doing. Like, just lay off a little bit. Like, let me play a little bit. We could figure out a way to work together. And to my face, she would be like, I'm not targeting you. I'm not targeting you. But at every opportunity behind my back, she was. She was causing more of a problem for me than Stephanie was. I knew Stephanie was a threat, but I stand by my decision at the time. Not that Kim was physically superior to me. I was worried about her beating me in challenges, that I thought she was going to be a better player strategically than I was. But I did think that she would cause more damage. She was more aware of my past experience playing reality games than Stephanie was at that time. And that's why I decided to take Kim out versus Stephanie. And I don't regret it. I stand by. I think that was the right decision.
Did you recognize Rob from the start from his previous stuff?
Immediately.
Did you? Okay. Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
an incredible, yeah. I'm a, I have a 20-year history of watching competitive reality programs. I'm very immersed in Survivor, but mostly Big Brother is my go-to competitive reality space. And so when I saw Rob, it was at that moment I realized, okay, I'm not being trafficked to some like strange island. This is for real.
This is legit. Yeah.
This is legit. And I didn't get an opportunity to ever divulge that I knew Rob in that competitive space, because what happened first is that Kim and Branson were the
Yep.
first to voice that they identified him, and immediately they became targets. And I was like, yep, so that's not going to happen to me. As far as we know, that is Robert from Boston.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, besides Rob, who do you think your toughest opponent was this season?
I didn't have another toughest opponent. That was Rob has a 20-year history of running circles around people in competitive reality space. He is as skilled as they come. There's not anyone on our cast that comes close, and you don't even need to be like the person with the most physicality. It's just the nature of being immersed in this sort of world for so long. There is no competition. There's no competition. If he's in the game, there's not any competition. And that's
Right.
just what it is.